Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Malaysia and Singapore have agreed to jointly develop the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone. This was announced in a joint press conference with Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and his Singaporean counterpart Lee Hsien Loong at the 10th Singapore-Malaysia Leaders Retreat.
We intend to jointly develop a Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone, which is a substantial and promising project, which will enhance the cross-border flow of goods and people and strengthen the business ecosystem, and will improve the economic attractiveness for both sides, for both Singapore and Johor.
He added that both sides were conducting a feasibility study on the SEZ to determine interest from investors and market demand. Anwar said both countries plan to sign a memorandum of understanding by early next year.
We will try our level best to accelerate the process. We have given a very short timeline to get them to agree on the parameters and sign the MOU by 11th of January. I hope that they can succeed, because I don't think it's too much of a complex problem, because they have discussed it extensively. Both ministers have done so, and I think we look forward to having some sort of arrangement, an agreement or understanding by mid-January.
Meanwhile, Malaysia and Singapore share the position that there must be an immediate ceasefire in the current Palestine-Israel conflict. Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong says this should also be accompanied by humanitarian assistance.
Lee added that both Singapore and Malaysia have expressed their respective views on the conflict. He noted that Malaysia has friendly relations with the Palestine Authority, but no diplomatic relations with Israel compared to Singapore. However, he believed that the two countries' different positions on the issue would not affect ties. Anwar said what was critical for now was peace and to stop the killings of civilians, women and children. He also said he had been in touch with several Arab leaders and expressed Malaysia's support for a peaceful resolution to the conflict.
Subsidies and price controls on chicken will be lifted from November 1st as part of the government's plan to implement a targeted subsidy system. However, Agriculture and Food Security Minister Datuk Seri Mohammad Sabu says the move will not involve grade A, B and C eggs at this juncture.
Rasional penamatan subsidi secara pukal bagi ayam adalah untuk mengurangkan ketirisan subsidi, di mana pada ketika ini ianya turut dinikmati oleh warga asing dan golongan berpendapatan tinggi. Penamatan harga kawalan ayam diambil bagi menyokong kemampanan industri pengeluaran ayam tempatan. Di samping itu, melalui kaedah ini, kerajaan akan turut dapat meningkatkan pelbagai inisiatif sosioekonomi dan kebajikan rakyat, termasuk bantuan tunai.
Mohammad said his ministry had several intervention measures in place if chicken prices soared after the price caps were lifted. He also announced that the Jualan Rahmah and Madani Agro sales will be expanded nationwide to supply affordable chicken. The government had borne the cost of 3.8 billion ringgit for chicken and egg subsidies since February 2022.
A total of 913 teenagers have tested positive for sexually transmitted diseases or STD from 2018 to 2022. Education Minister Farhana Sheikh says this is based on information by the Health Ministry and that the diseases involve syphilis, gonorrhea and HIV.
The highest number of STD cases in the last 5 years was recorded in 2018, where 255 teenagers tested positive. This is compared to 146 cases recorded last year. Farhana also said some 3% of students who underwent urine tests in 2019 also tested positive for drugs. This has since reduced to 0.64% as of September this year.
Concert organisers have been told to install some form of kill switch to curb any untoward incidents during the performance. Deputy Communications and Digital Minister Teo Nee Ching says the instruction was issued after an incident involving British band the 1975 at the Good Vibes Festival in Sepang.
Sekiranya ada apa-apa insiden yang tidak seronok berlaku, bolehlah kita kill switch serta-merta supaya putuskan elektrisiti, supayalah persembahan tersebut tidak bolehlah dijalankan lagi. Ini adalah garis panduan selepaslah insiden tersebut, dan kami harap bahawa denganlah garis panduan yang lebih ketat, kita lah boleh memastikan bahawa persembahan yang akan dijalankan oleh artis luar negara di Malaysia adalah ikutlah budaya negara kita.
Teo said the Police and Central Agency for Filming and Performance by Foreign Artists, PUSPAL, would carry out background checks on those seeking to perform in Malaysia. The Immigration Department and PUSPAL representatives would also be present to monitor future events. Meanwhile, the Public Accounts Committee report on the management of the COVID-19 outbreak revealed a total of 8.5 million COVID-19 vaccine doses, where 505 million ringgit have expired as of June 1st. It said the vaccines were procured by the Health Ministry based on its projections of the number of doses needed. However, the decreased demand for vaccination, delay in receiving vaccines, and vaccines donated by foreign countries had led to an excess. The total projected vaccine requirement was 83.3 million doses. A total of 72.8 million doses were used, which was 88% of the projection. The committee also said that 850,000 units of personal protective equipment boot covers, valued at 927,000 ringgit, would expire at the end of 2024. They are at risk of being wasted if left unused. Separately, the PAC said it found irregularities in the procurement in ventilators. The committee found that 104 of the 136 ventilators supplied by Farmaniaga Logistics Sdn Bhd to the Health Ministry during the pandemic were defective, but no party was able to take responsibility because there was no written agreement between the two parties. It was found that due to the lockdown and the urgency of the situation at the time, the deliberations and decisions for the procurement of the ventilators were made using WhatsApp instead of standard procedures. In other news, the Defence Ministry will procure 2 maritime patrol aircrafts from Italy that has the capability to detect the presence of submarines in the South China Sea near the Sabah region. Minister Datuk Seri Mohammad Hassan said this is because the long-range radar of the Malaysian Armed Forces at the Labuan Naval Air Base could not detect submarines and was only able to monitor the airspace.
He said his ministry is in the process of procurement, which has been approved by the National Security Council to acquire another LRR to be placed in Pulau Layang-Layang. Meanwhile, Mohammad said the Radar Coastal Surveillance System, CSS, has been installed at 13 locations covering the Kudat coast up to Tawau to monitor the east coast of Sabah. He said currently there are 8 radars that have just been upgraded last September 16th, involving the CSS 1206 radar. The minister added that the total allocation for the acquisition of the 6 radars is 57 million ringgit, which will be obtained under the 13th Malaysia Plan.
We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Doktor di Gaza melakukan pembedahan tanpa ubat penahan sakit kerana bekalan yang semakin kritikal.
Of all the cases that I've seen have been children. A lot of them have been like this. They've lost 1 or 2 parents.
Supaya ada suara tegas pertahankan hak rakyat Palestin. Rakyat bangkit. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
World Cities Day is an annual United Nations Observance Day held on 31st October. Under the theme Financing Sustainable Urban Future for All, This year's edition will be held in the municipality of Üsküdar in Istanbul. Our editor, Zulfitri Yusuf, is in Turkey for the event and speaks to UN Habitat's Chief of Communications, Katerina Bezgacina, about this year's edition.
This year, the whole month, we celebrated and we promoted sustainable urban development, and we focused on the topic of financing sustainable urban development. It is a very important topic because we can talk about sustainable development, but financing is a fuel that helps run
Without financing and investing, there's nothing that can happen.
Yes, so that's why we feel it is very important to talk about this topic, especially now with the economic downturn, with a lot of conflicts happening, climate disasters that claim more and more lives and affect more and more people and communities. We feel it is really important to address the issue of financing, and especially now because in July we had a high-level political forum in New York, and we all realized that we are behind in meeting sustainable development goals and our targets for the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. It is really important to do something. One of the ways how we can accelerate development is by igniting our cities and using the power of our cities as engines of economic development. Cities are really important players. They need to have a seat at the table. They also have the key to economic prosperity. So we need to somehow unlock their potential, and that is essentially the purpose.
Here is the latest update in Gaza. The death toll from the Israel-Palestine war has passed the 8,000 mark on Monday as Israel continues to expand its ground operations in Gaza. The ongoing Israeli air attacks in Gaza have also destroyed 47 mosques and 7 churches, as well as 203 schools and 80 government offices. Meanwhile, the United Nations warns that civil order is deteriorating in Gaza after weeks of siege and bombardment, with warehouses raided in search of food and essentials. The agency has confirmed at least 33 aid trucks entered Gaza, the largest aid convoy since the war began, bringing the total number of truck crossings into Gaza to 117. The United States said the flow of aid into Gaza needs to be increased and that it is prepared to support a humanitarian pause amid a growing outcry over the human cost of the war. The UN Security Council will come together for an emergency meeting on Monday following a request by the United Arab Emirates seeking for a binding resolution demanding for Israel to agree to a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. Over in Russia, police have taken over an airport in the Dagestan region after hundreds of anti-Israel protesters stormed the airport on Sunday when a plane from Israel arrived. 60 people have been arrested in the mob incident.
Video footage on social media showed an angry crowd running through the airport in Makhachkala, reportedly seeking people arriving from Tel Aviv. Some of the crowd ran onto the runway and surrounded aircraft there. Security forces later brought the situation under control. All flights were diverted as the airport will stay closed until Tuesday. Israel has urged Russia to protect all its citizens and all Jews following the incident. Dagestan, home to some 3.1 million people, is a mainly Muslim Russian republic in the North Caucasus.
At least 13 people have died and about 50 are injured after 2 passenger trains collided in India's southern Andhra Pradesh state on Sunday. Preliminary investigation found that a human error led to overshooting of signal, causing the collision.
Officials said 3 carriages of a passenger train travelling between Visakhapatnam and Palasa derailed around 7 p.m. local time after it was hit by another train. Hundreds of medical and rescue personnel were sent to the scene to rescue passengers and remove bodies. Following the accident, 33 train trips have been cancelled and 22 others have been diverted with the affected track to be cleared for traffic. The accident comes just months after a devastating crash involving 3 trains killed 292 people and injured thousands more in the eastern state of Odisha.
That wraps up AWANI tonight. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.